All right, Chris, we made it to episode 2. I think this podcast is officially a thing now.
That's it. We are a thing here on Six Scale Scavengers. Episode 2, it's a milestone.
And we've made a milestone. It was more than just a once and done thing. We've now fully committed to this. You're either now listening on hopefully Apple Podcasts soon. That's been an adventure over the past week. And we're now officially have a home on Libsyn, so you can actually find the podcast there too. And hopefully, if you're now just tuning in, you've got a couple episodes to get with our preview episode, and then our last episode that we just had, where we covered Luke Skywalker, Jedi, Return of the Jedi, excuse me, and Iron Man Mark V. So, Chris, you and I are actually both coming off of a vacation, just conveniently, right. We recorded our last episode, and then we both took some time off. I don't know. How was it?
It was good. Good, man. Took the family, with my wife's family, up to northern Vermont on Lake Champlain, and just relaxed and hung out and just got away from the rat race. It's pretty much it. Tried to do some hunting, vintage hunting, but there wasn't much going on up there. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. How about you, man? I know you were traveling.
Yeah, we had it out. We had it about it was about 7.5 hours, depending all with the potty breaks with my son. But we headed from central New Hampshire down to Hershey, Pennsylvania. So we did the Hershey Park, did the whole Chocolate World Tour and whatnot. It was actually really good. I think we were in and out of that park for like 5 days. You can go do some tours and all that other stuff. So like you, it was just great to get away. I had a full almost 9 days off of work, and it was definitely much needed. Like you, Chris, there was not a whole lot of hunting to be done out there. And I think, as we've kind of switched more to the hot toy focus, which this podcast is about with Star Wars and Marvel hot toys, I didn't really find much. Of course, you're not going to be surprised to hear this, and many of our listeners probably too. I did find a Shore Trooper that I didn't have. I found the Bandai model kit. It's obviously 1/12 scale, doesn't fit the theme of this podcast, but that was all that I found out there. So I did want to give a quick shout out to a good friend of ours, and I actually had the opportunity to meet this fine gentleman in person. But being out in Pennsylvania, I was able to meet up with Mark Pearson, really stand-up guy. We chatted Star Wars and everything for quite a while. I know he's a listener to the podcast. Like us, has gotten the hot toys bug. It's great to be able to converse with a lot of these. I don't really want to tell them like online friends or acquaintances, but you find these common grounds, and Marvel and Star Wars are things that we can bond over despite distances and different backgrounds and upbringings and careers and whatnot. But man, it was just so cool just to meet face to face. And I would definitely consider him a friend now. Mark, thanks for tuning in and sharing out our newly minted podcast here with some of your buddies, and we certainly appreciate it.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Making this collecting bug that we have more than just that, sharing it with those that we meet online and connecting. And it's really cool to meet Mark. Him and I are friends on Facebook and other social media platforms, but really cool. Did you guys try to record anything? I know you tried, but
it was we had tried. I'd love to get them for a collector's convo episode on Brick City Blockade. It was hard to do in person. It's hard with all the ambient background noise and stuff. So whether we have him on as a guest on this podcast or something for the Brick City Blockade podcast network, definitely want to do that at some point here. But yeah, so Chris, I guess we'll get into it. I mean, now that we're a thing, we have a second episode here. You and I did some talking about maybe firming up kind of what our show format will be going forward. Our first episode was just over an hour. Hopefully our ongoing episodes won't be as long, but hopefully you did appreciate the extra content that you got there. So really, we'll focus going forward. Most of our show formats we'll cover any news, anything hot toys, Marvel or Star Wars related in between our episodes, and this week it's a little light on some of the figure news. It was coming fast and furious there for quite a while. We'll talk about either tips or tricks or things that we've learned, or just relevant topics that we want to talk about. We'll delve into kind of some of our collecting updates, what's going on. I've actually been quite active, surprisingly, while on vacation with my collection. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll try to always have at least one, maybe two figure reviews that we have in hand. Again, Chris and I don't pretend to be experts. We do this, and we are going to be doing this podcast because we love collecting, we love hot toys, and we love talking about it. And hopefully our passion for those things comes through. And we just want to learn from you, the audience, and constantly just see how we can further develop it as collectors and stuff. So it's just our opinions. Take them for what they're worth, but hopefully you find them also valuable.
Very good points, man. Yeah. All going forward, we're just going to see how things flow with the format of the podcast, and we'll be somewhat structured, but not too structured. But looking forward to digging into what's going on or what's been going on in the past week or two. What's come out Hot Toys wise, Marvel and Star Wars?
So just two things to talk about this episode with nothing Star Wars related, but Marvel related, Marvel Studios related. I think we talked about, and already on our second episode, we should probably already remember this, but hey, I'm going to blame it on us being on vacation. I think we mentioned talking about, Chris, the Mark L or Mark 50 accessory pack. I think it was ACS 004. It was like the fourth accessory pack. Of course, being the bad host that I am, I didn't bother to look up what the other three were in between episodes. But again,
it's all good. We got plenty of time.
Chalk that up to vacation. But Chris, we did finally get the release of the information, and I did update the checklist at brickcityblockade.com. We've got a price and we got a release date on this accessory pack, and whoo, it's up there. I think I don't even remember what you and I had talked offline about what we thought it would be. I thought maybe
way less.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like 100, 150, but it came in, Chris, at a whopping $243 for, let me count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like maybe like 8 or 10 accessories. It doesn't even come with the figure.
Yeah,
$243, and I don't know if I got any confirmation. I don't know if they're die cast or not. I would assume that they probably are, and maybe that's why you have the elevated price tag. But it finally showed up on Sideshow. It's there for pre-order. We're not going to see this until December 2019 at the earliest, and at the latest February 2020, which seems crazy to say 2020 at this point. But it's weird, Chris, because the Mark 50 figure from Infinity War, and speaking of Infinity War, if you've got the digital download, you've had the opportunity, like I have, to now already watch it, and I believe by the time this podcast comes out, it'll also be on DVD, Blu-ray. That Mark 50 figure is going to be out next April 2019. So even if you get that figure and also want to get the accessory pack, you could potentially own that figure for maybe even 6 to 8 months before all the extra accessories are there. And then we're talking about a price tag, Chris, of the Mark 50 figure was already $407, which at the time was like, wow, they finally did that on a die-cast model. They crossed the 400 barrier, and we'll talk about it at another point, what that's done to the market since then. If you wanted both combined and you added in shipping, you're probably looking at about $700 for like the ultimate Mark 50 armor. Yikes.
Yeah, that's kind of mental. $700 all in. All those accessories, I was just really going in depth on all the pictures and stuff on Hot Toys website. They look amazing. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going for that.
No, I mean, I'm interested in the figure, but
yeah,
I think we talked about it either in the preview or our first episode that, I like accessories, but I don't really display a lot of my figures with them. that is not something that me as a collector, and I wouldn't say I have like bland poses in my cases, but it's, there, some posing action, but other than that, like I don't have a lot. Most of the accessories I have are stored away or in the original box. So for me, even if I wanted, and I haven't made the decision if I really want that armor or not, I do like it, but there's something holding me back, and maybe it's the price tag. But even if I got it, I would not get the accessory pack because I just never would display it with those things.
Yeah, I think the set is really for the collector that really messes with their figures and is constantly
Like
mixing things
reposing,
up.
and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard rumors that it's not diecast, but I don't know if it definitely says on Sideshow in the description, but if it's not, the price tag is kind of crazy. But I mean, the craftsmanship and the detail is, at least with the prototype images, looks amazing. But yeah, it's just not something that I'm going to go for. I've decided I'm not going to go for the Mark 50. I loved the nanotech look of it, and how it, could come up with all those different weapons and shapes and stuff like that in the movie, and Hot Toys looked like they nailed it out of the park as far as recreating that design. But I don't know, it's just, I think, the Iron Man completists out there, the collectors, they're they're probably all over this thing. But I'm kind of, I've got my two Iron Man figures. I'm considering the next one we're going to talk about, but still, we're going to talk about price tag with that one also.
Yeah, so
But
let's
yeah,
just get
man.
into it. So we
Okay.
finally, we were kind of wondering, as the MMS line that we often talk about, it's basically the main six scale line for Hot Toys movie masterpiece series. And lo and behold, to the surprise of nobody, it was an Iron Man figure. And Iron Man and Hot Toys are kind of synonymous. And I have some, some stats that I've been able to collect from our checklist that we have on brickcityblockade.com. The
Take a deep
50
breath here.
big deep breath, surprise, surprise, the 500th figure is Iron Man. We finally get the Mark 7 from the Avengers and the diecast. And this is something that was rumored by looking at some of the, the Hong Kong toy show stuff, that this was going to be the figure. Well, when they finally went from just teasing it to releasing it and putting the pre-orders up, we finally see that it's figure 500. Chris's die number 27, and you mentioned it, price tag of $433, and
Oh
that doesn't
man.
include shipping. And usually from Sideshow,
Yeah.
the figure, the not quite, it's usually like $23 to $25 to ship usually these figures.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna tack that on, it's gonna be over $450 to get that figure. Hopefully you've got some Sideshow points saved up to
Mm-hmm.
put towards that. But we're looking at a figure that's going to come out next October, and happens to be from a movie that's been out for quite a while in the Avengers. I think it's fitting. I was gonna say it's suited, but that would have been kind of a pun.
You did it anyway.
I did it anyways, and I'll leave that in the recording here. But I don't know. It looks amazing. I'm kind of glad it doesn't have one of the big bulky stands that have come with some of the other die cast. I know like the Iron Patriot has a big base that comes with it. The Mark 6 from the Avengers, which Tony Stark wears in the beginning part of the film, which is a carryover from Iron Man 2. This is the armor that he receives once he kind of falls out of the building in his confrontation with Loki there. And it even comes with the pod or whatever it is that kind of shoots out of the Stark Tower and grabs him before he becomes a pancake there in New York. So I don't know. Accessory wise, it is just completely loaded. It's got all the battle damage stuff. He takes a licking in that movie and kind of keeps on ticking. But I don't know, Chris, are you surprised that that figure is an Iron Man figure?
Nope, not at all. The trends of Hot Toys, it's pretty easy to follow in that regards. And I know a lot of collectors on the Facebook groups and stuff were talking about that they wish it was something else, but Hot Toys, Iron Man is their best commodity with the Marvel line. It's just got endless amounts of options, and I could see why they did this figure. Avengers, it's a 10th anniversary of the MCU. Avengers was that first culmination movie where everyone's like, okay, this is a thing. And just like our podcast, like coming together, everyone coming together. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
So
no, it's a great figure choice. It's just, some people question, okay, the movie's so old. Why would they choose that one? But
my math may be wrong, and I tried to capture anything. So obviously, Hot Toys has done a lot of Iron Man figures. They've done quite a few Tony Stark. They even did a set that had Pepper Potts and the Mark 9 armor that she wears in Iron Man 3. I counted that too. And Chris, out of the 189 six scale figures that Hot Toys has done for Marvel, that includes all Marvel, even the Fox stuff, the not, like some of the TV series and stuff. It's not just all MCU. Out of 189 figures they've done, 63 have been Iron Man related. And that doesn't even include War Machine or anything. 33.3% of all the figures they've done have been Iron Man. So when people say, geez, another Iron Man figure, well, a third of them have been Iron Man figures. And, going back to Iron Man 3 with the House Party Protocol and just all the different variations of armor that he has had, you're right, Chris. It's very conducive to releasing all of those variations. I mean, all the other characters. I mean, the next probably most done figure is probably Captain America, and there's only so many variations they can do of the costumes. I mean, we both love the fact that they're going to do the concept art version coming out soon that they've already shown. It's been released in Hong Kong. So that's another way to get another variation out there. But they've been doing that with Iron Man for years with the different versions of the stealth one. And we just got the neon one. These are all things that weren't in the films, but they're taking artistic liberties with some of those things. So I honestly think it's cool. I think this figure is definitely going to be something that collectors are going to want. I personally, like you, also have the Mark 6. It's tough to want to add that other one there. I do love the Avengers. It's one of my favorite MCU films, but I don't know. We'll see. Speaking of Avengers, it's because of Iron Man, and they've done 7 figures, I think, from Avengers have been Iron Man. And obviously, there are all these other variations that obviously weren't in the film. He only wears 2 armors in the film. It's the 20th figure they're going to have done from the Avengers. You would think other ones like Civil War and others have had quite a few, dwarfed in comparison to everything else they've done MCU related.
It's crazy how many figures they've done to date, Marvel. And then, yeah, for those Iron Man completists out there, yikes, man, that's a chunk of change sitting on your shelves. Am I correct that they've already done a Mark 7, right?
Yeah, so they've done a few others. They've done the non-diecast one. They've done a battle damaged non-diecast one. This is the first Mark 7 they've done that it's been diecast.
Okay. Yeah, those accessories that come with it, that pod and everything. If you're an accessory person, you're probably going to be getting that accessory kit. You're probably going to be getting this release of Iron Man. It's pretty cool. It's tempting. I really like the design of that suit, mixing in the silver tones. And Hot Toys, they, at least in the prototype, the weathering and the damage, it just looks amazing. That's what's really gotten me, thinking about going for this figure. We've got a long time. It'll probably be up for pre-order for a while. Start saving your pennies or figuring out what you're gonna do. But yeah, I like it. The only thing is, there's just gonna be more Iron Man figures, so you kind of got to pick and choose. If you don't want,
I think it goes back to some advice that we've already given. It's sticking to your focus. Don't feel like you have to chase every figure. And Iron Man is one of those figures that I commend there's several Instagrammers out there that have, the entire Hall of Armor, the House Party Protocol. It's definitely a thing, but it's just that isn't for me. And personally, I just wouldn't even have the space to do it if I wanted to. So that's why for that particular character, although I love Iron Man, I gotta be picky and choosy with that. So that's the news. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing. I'm in between when we record our next episode, if anything else is released, and kind of our disclaimer here too. We are gonna just focus on Marvel and the MCU and Star Wars. It's no offense to any of the other licenses out there. Again, those aren't things that we'll probably be chasing. If we ever say anything relevant, we may mention it, but that's why you won't. If you're screaming at your iPhone right now, or you're driving in the car and why aren't they talking about these other things? Well, we're trying to, even though we're not experts here, we're going to try to stick to the things that we know and we love. So speaking of things that we know and love, Chris, you and I have been on this journey pretty much together. I had a couple months advance on you of starting into this Hot Toys thing. We definitely wanted this podcast to be something that you and I we can continue to learn and get better as collectors, but also share what we've learned. And there's, as we said originally, we looked at the internet and we figured they needed one more collecting podcast out there. Want this to be a resource for people to have us. We've done a lot of some of the legwork already on some things to, we've both made, we've found deals, we've made mistakes, we've potentially had things where like, oh, why didn't I do that? Or why didn't I wait for that eBay deal or blah, blah, blah. We wanted to start with, as our episodes going forward here, about just things that we think you as the audience will find helpful. And with this one, we wanted to focus on recommended resources and websites where you can find some of these things. I mean, some of our new listeners are probably wondering, where can I find out about these things you're talking about? Where can I find the images? So Chris, what's our first one we should send people to?
Well, the first one is brickcityblockade.com, of course. Thanks to your hard work and little formula that you've concocted, you've created a couple lists for Marvel and Star Wars Hot Toys, starting from the beginning. And what's awesome about the lists that you've put together is that not only are there links to Sideshow or Hot Toys directly to view the images and some of the details and the stats on the figures, you've also got hot links for eBay and Amazon, because a lot of those figures are available on those websites as well. And for us, it's all chronological from release. The newest releases will be at the top of the lists, and it just makes it really helpful. You can just scroll through and click on the ones you like, and it'll send you directly to Sideshow, eBay, wherever you want to go. And for eBay, it's pretty cool. eBay, you get a lot of deals on eBay, but you've also got to do comparisons on stuff that's on eBay. Even though it might seem like a deal on eBay, you never know if another retailer might have that figure with some sort of promo deal or that sort of thing. And I got to be honest, most of my stuff I've bought on eBay, everything's I've bought is either been on eBay or it's been from Sideshow. But that's just my experience. How about you? You want to add anything to the list?
I appreciate the kind words. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but yeah, it is kind of a labor of love, and did take quite a while to compile. But now, as you mentioned, it's something we've mentioned it on other podcasts. You and I, we get excited when there's new releases, and we are able to go on to we can start seeing some of the stuff and hitting social media. And also, not only you and I talking about it, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I got to hop on Brick City Blockade later tonight and hopefully update it. It took a little bit coming back from vacation, but thankfully we only had 2 releases while I was away, so it didn't take too much. But yeah, no, it's it's just there to see. And if you're interested in how many figures they've been, how many, how many Luke Skywalkers have they done, how many Black Widows, it's all there. So Chris,
Yeah.
you mentioned Sideshow. That to me is kind of the go-to. I mean, they're the official distributor slash retailer for North America and Europe for Hot Toys. We've mentioned Hot Toys is based in Hong Kong. Why should we go to Sideshow?
Well, Sideshow, I mentioned on our preview episode, they struck a deal with Hot Toys a number of years ago, and to be that distributor. And the thing that Sideshow does, which is helpful for collectors, especially of the premium 6 scale figures, is that you can do payment plans depending on the price of the figure at retail. You can break it up. I've seen as low as 2 payments, as many as 7 for figures that are usually in the $350 range. You can break it up to 7 payments. So that makes it helpful. And you, on your account page, it's really nice. What they do is they have calendars, and it's broken up. You have a bullet point for every time you have a payment coming due. So you can look at the calendar and you can kind of plan out, okay, I got a payment this month, I got a payment next month, 2 payments, blah, blah, blah. So, and it shows anytime you make a purchase, so you can keep track of that. So that's nice. And other things that Sideshow gives you are rewards points on the on every purchase you make. They kind of go into your rewards bank, into the in your account. And what is that? Is it 5% of the overall?
Yep, you're right.
Okay, yeah, 5% goes into your rewards bank, and you can use those on any purchase going forward. For the rewards points, they do. I don't know about anything other than the Hot Toys, but usually they go into effect 40 days after you've received your item. So you can't use them immediately. So you got to kind of plan things out if you're going to end up using rewards points on then your next purchase. Okay, so another cool thing that Sideshow does are promos. They do giveaways, and if you sign up for the giveaway, they usually shoot you a $25 promo code that you can use on items of their choosing. Usually stuff that they have in stock, or some things that maybe they're just trying to move out. And if you can kind of plan, if there's some figures that have been sitting on Sideshow for a long time and you really want one, I'd wait until there's a giveaway, because you're going to get a $25 promo code and you can use that towards it. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for Sideshow. They've got tons of other things. They've got their own products that they create, just amazing sculptures and prints, and just you name it, there's pretty much anything on there.
Yeah, and one other site we've talked about quite a bit is Big Bad Toy Store. Now they're US based. I want to say they may be in Wisconsin, and they are not necessarily an official distributor of Hot Toys, but they do take pre-orders, so they must have some kind of a connection to Hong Kong. They don't have an unlimited amount of pre-orders available, but for figures, again, that have been out for a while and maybe sitting around, you talk about deals, Chris, and especially if any of our new listeners are looking to get in, to Hot Toys and are looking for a really cool entry point right now. I know at least at the time of this recording, they're running kind of like a summer sale, and I think there might be 30 to 40 Hot Toys figures that they have out there with different licenses. Some of them, I don't know. There might still be a few Marvel figures. They're mostly Star Wars. A lot of the troopers, the First Order troopers out there. I know they have a Finn out there that I've been kind of looking at, but they're offering like a store credit back. So some of these figures, I know there's a Nick Fury out there. So Nick Fury is a figure that's retailing right now still for $220, but they're going to give you back like 75 store credit. So it's almost like knocking that off. And if you knew you're going to buy something else from then, it's kind of like getting a pretty serious discount on the figure. I know the Finn figure out there, I think is 200. I think you can get like 75 off of that. Again, that makes it very enticing. Those are both excellent figures. So it's some, I know some collectors, Chris, prefer to go through Big Bad Toy Store because as opposed to Sideshow, Sideshow does require a non-refundable deposit. For most of the figures, it's usually in the $23 to $26 range, depending. And that's kind of their way to protect themselves if you are going to pre-order and then at the last minute decide, oh, I don't want it. At least that helps them to know that they're going to be able to resell that figure, or maybe entice you not to carry forward with that. For some figures, Hot Toys will not make you do that. They'll allow you to do a pre-order and cancel last second. But caveat being, I think that might be something they're starting to change as part of a company policy, because I have noticed on some recent figures they are requiring that deposit. So be careful if you do decide to do that. But they have a huge section of Hot Toys there.
Yeah, I'll just add to that real quick. They have, I believe, about 22 or 23 Marvel Hot Toys in stock right now. And I think about 75% of those in stock have some sort of store credit bonus deal. I mean, the probably the biggest one is Iron Man Igor suit from Iron Man 3. It retails for $510, but you get a $200 store credit back if you pick that up. So it's worth checking out. Compare the prices with eBay and stuff like that. But I mean, that's a massive figure, and you put that money towards $510 plus shipping up front, and your next purchase you could get an entire figure for essentially free. But yeah, that's the cool thing about Big Bad Toy Store, and I think their shipping costs are a little bit cheaper.
They're almost half of what.
Okay.
So the one thing I will mention is because I have gotten a few figures from, I believe my Spider-Man, actually both of the Spider-Man figures that I have, and one of the Iron Man figures that I have. The one thing, the shipping is less because obviously they're able to get discounts on all the shipping providers just based on the volume that they have. But I will say, I don't know, Chris, if we've talked about the shipping boxes at all. And I think that's probably a topic for another episode. But one thing that Big Bad Toy Store does is they essentially double box everything, whereas Sideshow will ship you things directly in their shipper boxes. So basically, it's just another layer of cardboard right around the larger Hot Toys boxes. So I've never had a figure damaged in transit from Sideshow directly in that extra box. But if you are concerned about that, Big Bad Toy Store will double box things for you. They put plenty of bubble wrap and stuff around it. Your figures will arrive very safely.
That's a really good tip. Got to keep those figures nice and safe, man.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
So the other website that I did want to kind of mention too, we've alluded to a little bit, but it's technically the official Hot Toys corporate website. When these new figures are released, that's where the first images are up. And to be honest, Chris, you mentioned some of that research of finding out what is the actual product codes, when are they going to be released. That's my go-to. That's where I find that information, and where I find these MMS blah 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 numbers. It's right from the Hot Toys website. Sometimes on Sideshow, those numbers actually aren't displayable. I mean, when you get the figure in hand, it's obviously on the box. It's in part of the instruction manuals and stuff. They make it pretty clear what it is. But for me, that's the good thing, Chris, and I think you've gotten some of things set up on where you can save searches. I have on my mobile devices plus my laptop, I have searches saved where you can search just for 6 scale figures, just in the lines you're interested in, and those are what you're going to see displayed. You can obviously look at everything at all the time, but that's where I go first thing in the morning, and it usually leads to our conversations for the day. I'm like, did anything new get released? That's where you find out about it.
Yeah, that's a cool feature on that website. And again, the links that you've set up on our list on brickcityblockade.com, some of them will bring you to the Hot Toys
Some of the older
site.
ones.
Yeah,
I
some of the
mean,
older ones.
I
That's
I,
what I
tr-
was
I
going to say.
trolled speaking of Sideshow, I trolled that website quite a bit for. I'm sure they're wondering why they're getting a whole lot of traffic to figures that have been sold out for 5 and 6 years, but that's where they have a lot of still the images of what you wanted to see what the figure looked like. So I send some things there, but some of the first Iron Man figures and stuff that are out there, Chris, I couldn't find anything out there. It was pretty sparse. I thought I did as good as I could to get as much information as I could on some of those figures that have now been out for over 10 years. I mean, the MCU, as you mentioned, it's celebrating its 10th year right now. So it's kind of crazy the amount of time that we've spent with these characters, we know and love.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And just touching on one more thing about the Hot Toys website, it's not just Hot Toys makes other products as well. So it's kind of neat to see what else they've got coming out. But yeah, like you said, you can fine tune your search, and everything that you want will pop up. You're not getting everything under the sun.
And finally, I guess we'll wrap up kind of our tips and tricks here with websites to check out. Chris, you alluded to it a bunch of different times, but Facebook, believe it or not, is actually a really good resource.
It sure is. Facebook has changed the way collectors have interacted quite a bit over the last 6, 7, 8 years. Lots of these groups being created by the collectors, by fans, and so there's a Hot Toys collectors group. It's really large. I mean, it's got, I don't know, 20,000 people in it or something. I don't know, it's something big like that. But on there, lots and lots of images. You get people dropping the latest news, the latest releases, people asking questions. Should I get this figure? Should I get that figure? Are there problems with this figure? What should I look out for? Just tons of information shared on that group. I think that's probably the first one that I jumped. I think you added me to it, and it's just fun seeing everything that people are doing with their Hot Toys. And another one that I just found recently, I guess I probably should have stumbled across it earlier, but it's called 1/6 Society. Those guys over there, guys and girls, very positive. Love the vibe of that group. People showing off their displays, just epic setups of their figures, all different ideas being shared over there. Good discussions. They're actually just celebrating their second anniversary, and the creator of the group is putting out a Anakin Dark Side giveaway. So check that out. Another group that you pointed me in the direction of, Tashi Station, 1/6 scale to full scale collectibles. What are some points on that group that you
Yeah,
really
that's
liked?
that's my that's my personal favorite. It's been one of the ones I've been in probably the longest. And you talk about a vibe. They've got good admins and moderators there that really not necessarily they curb a lot of the negativity out there, and they've got a really good set of rules. And you talk about those giveaways because they're able to. A lot of the members that are there will pre-order their figures through some of their affiliate links. Their Tashi Station collectors, TS collectors might be their website that they have. But because of that, Sideshow allows them to get figures to do giveaways, and there's various different things. I think they most recently gave away a Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi figure. I think before that, it may have been a Han Solo in Stormtrooper disguise, and various different things, just bringing awareness to the line and whatnot. So I commend those individuals over there for running a really fine community. And I think we have one more to mention here, Chris.
Yeah, we do have one more to mention. Just recently, we've created the 6 scale Scavengers group. We'll be sharing the information from previous episodes on there, images of things that we've discussed, images of things that we plan on discussing in the near future, and interacting with listeners and our friends.
And this will be a closed group. Obviously, we're not advertising it now. There's just some basic questions you need to answer to make sure that we've vetted you, that you are actually listeners of the podcast. There are some really hard hitting questions out there, believe me. And no, we're looking forward to, as we've mentioned, we don't pretend to be experts. We want to learn with you, our audience, and that we felt like was one of the best ways to do that in between episodes. And we love any feedback you may have, suggestions. Chris, you and I have talked offline also too. Just by happenstance, we're talking about some recent figures that have been released, the ones we're going to be covering, but you and I have a growing collection. Who says that we can't go back to a figure that's been previously released and talk about the figure, what we like about it? Maybe it's still something that's affordable and attainable on the secondary markets, and maybe based on some of our thoughts and opinions about those figures, it may be something that you as the listener may be interested in trying to track down.
Yeah, absolutely. Going forward, I think we're not going to stick to the latest figures being released. We'll try, our latest acquisitions and that sort of thing. As far as recently released figures, we'll be discussing. But we'll get feedback from you guys, the listeners, and see if there's certain figures that we might have in our collections that you'd like us to talk about. But we'll just see how things go.
Absolutely. So one of the other things that we wanted to kind of talk about, and this may be something that changes over the course of time too, but trying to be as transparent as we can as collectors, and let you kind of know what we've got going on, so that that we are actually collectors and you see the different things that we do. So figured we talk about going forward things in between episodes that we've either been interested in but maybe not pulled the trigger on, changing setups or displays, any pre-orders we may have done, any figures we unfortunately may have had to part with for various different reasons. I don't know, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should jump right into it. I know you had a project over your vacation,
Yeah,
and
so
what was that?
as our friend Scott Inch in Scotland would say, on holiday, I've been meaning to get to lighting up my, and again, we're gonna butcher this. IKEA is Swedish. My family is very much Swedish. I should know how to pronounce these things, but they just have really odd names. So I'm gonna go with Detolf. That's what I'm gonna pronounce the glass cases as. And I've been wanting, Chris, for a while to get some lighting. I have a bunch of just standard lights with LED in my collection room, but I don't feel like it ever really displayed it. And you mentioned, Chris, about looking at what other collectors are able to do. And there's just some literally amazing jaw dropping things that some people are able to do out there. I just wanted to add some LED lights. So I went, enough people have said they have had success with the Deoder lights. They're the LED strips. They come in packs of 4, and you're able to string up your case, no pun intended. And I did it. I started with one. I have 4 of these glass cases from IKEA. I got 4 sets of lights. Hit on a candy store when the FedEx guy showed up that day with them. I immediately went to go to work. I'll just spare everybody a lot of the details. It was definitely a learn as I went. I figured by the last case that I did, I finally felt like I had it down, but of course it was the last one I'm going to need to do unless any of the lights burn out. They look amazing. I gotta say, they definitely give off a lot of the features that you miss when you've got only like one light showing on the figures. And I definitely can see why people have done this. The one thing that, Chris, that bothered me, and I think I even sent you a message. I'm like, I don't know what to do with the nest of wires that are just spewing out of the bottom of all.
I know they're everywhere.
I've been researching things. I know you had suggested maybe doing some wire looms and things to kind of cover them up. I kind of have like a little bit of a DIY project going on for some of those things. Right now, it's not bothering me too much. I think I'm still in that honeymoon phase of, ooh, look at all the lights. And the cool thing is there's like a little switch, and I have them at the base of the cases, so I can either bend down and turn them on, or if I'm really lazy, I can just hit it with my foot. And it's really cool to see the collection in a whole new way.
Yes, the pictures that you showed me, it really, I've seen your setup in person, and seeing it with the new lighting and everything, it really hits on all those key areas of the figures that really make them pop. It looks great, man. And you did a video recently, didn't
Yeah,
you?
so you can find the video again. I guess we'll just plug our own private Facebook group, but I did put a little quick walkthrough of there. Nothing fancy, just showing my little space of collecting heaven here, I guess I'll say. But Chris, we mentioned, although I was on vacation, I was pretty active with, right before I had left, I had sold some figures and that I was going to put it back in the budget of all things. And we're part of the Brick City Blockade Star Wars podcast family. And we're talking to our good friend Jim Roberge in our Cantina episode, which basically is our kind of all Star Wars chat. And it's just, and basically the three of us just sitting around talking about whatever comes up, nothing planned. Chris, of all things, we were talking about ranking, all the Star Wars movies that have been released, and
Mhm.
you and Jim were talking about Rogue One. And even myself, I was struggling to really rank the film. And I was like, I think I've really undersold that film. And the more I thought about it, I was like, I really enjoy that film. And I enjoy a lot of the characters. So what do
Mhm.
you do when you're a collector? You start digging around. So I did end up finding a couple figures for some reasonable deals. Speaking of eBay, so I was able to add K2 and the standard version of Chirrut Imwe to my collection, and they look mighty fine next to my Jyn Erso Deluxe and Shore Trooper. So I gave Rogue One a little bit more love in my collection, and I'm not sure if there's anything else. I did kind of look at some Death Troopers, but they're way, in my estimation, way overpriced right now. Not really anything else. I'm not a big trooper collector outside of the shore trooper. So, but I don't know. I just had to give you guys a shout about that. Little did you know that you actually influenced some of my collecting decisions.
We worked our magic. No, they look like great figures. I know Jim's got the Chirrut, and I've got another buddy of mine, Justin Rowland. He's a K2 SO focus collector, and he's dying for me to get over to your place and check that thing out for him, because he's not too sure about pulling the trigger on a pricey item like that. But
He should get it.
he's
I'm
yeah,
not I'm not big on putting batteries and lighting up the
yeah.
figures, but to me it was worth it, and I was able to. I got a really good deal on it. Not much more than what it was originally going for retail. So a couple years out for a figure like that, you really can't complain about that too much. Another figure that I added, and I'm not trying to trying to brag about all these things, but I get really excited about these things. I love R2D2, and for the longest time I stared. We talk about we'll talk about this often on the podcast. I don't have any regrets. One of my regrets was sitting too long looking at the R2D2 from The Force Awakens on Sideshow. And when I was getting close to thinking of like, yeah, I really want to add that to my collection, it went waitlisted on Sideshow and then it sold out. And then from there, the price just jumped by over $100 on eBay. And just by happenstance, looking while I was on vacation, I found a deal on one. It was, I think, $15 under retail. Plus, it was with free shipping. So I was like, it
Wow.
was meant to be. We talk about oftentimes about collecting as kind of a form of escapism. And I literally was smiling ear to ear when I opened up that figure. I was something about R2D2 has always been, one of those characters I just really enjoy in Star Wars.
Yeah, I can't wait to check out that one. To make room for these figures, you did sell off three figures. Which
So
ones
I,
did you decided to part with?
So I did. I think we may have talked about it before. I did reluctantly part with my Iron Man Mark 47 from Spider-Man Homecoming, but the market price just made that it made it an easier decision to make. And then I had sold some other Marvel figures that I had that I enjoyed. It just didn't really fit with my collecting focus. I had Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but I didn't really have any intention of getting any of the other Guardians and didn't really want to kind of air quotes complete that team. And I also, one of the first figures I had got, and I got a really good deal on it, was Iron Patriot, War Machine from Iron Man 3. Again, just didn't really fit what I wanted. And basically, I was able to take those three figures and then get three figures that I really had. It just each of those have been awesome. I was able also. I've talked and seen a lot of good things about the Anakin Skywalker figure that was released earlier this year. It's been on a lot of toy reviewers, hot toy reviewers, excuse me, figures of the year so far. And that was another one that I had wanted, again, regretted. It went on pre-order and actually almost filled immediately. So I've got that on the way. And right before I went on vacation, we'll talk about the figure that I also just got, Rey from the Force Away, Rey from The Last Jedi, which will be our feature figure. Chris, I feel like that was a lot. I mean, I will be completely honest, like
Yeah.
that is going to be the highlight of a lot of my collecting for quite a while. I certainly don't have the disposable income or the budget or anything to do that. But I think just by, moving some collection stuff around, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to do that. And it's one of our good friends, Bill Janowski of the Dork Lair. He talks about kind of, you sell and buy things, but it's essentially almost kind of trading, and trading things for one thing for another is really hard to do. But sometimes by selling one thing and then buying another, you're able to almost do that swap within your own collection. It's something I can't recommend enough.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is really deciding where your collection is going, what your focus is. Like for me, I'll reiterate, I'm only doing Marvel Hot Toys. As much as I love Star Wars, I love it so much. I'm decided at this point I gotta kind of keep things in line. Got tons of vintage Star Wars stuff, plenty to represent Star Wars in that capacity. But for Marvel, that's my direction, and I'm all about buying, buying and selling to add to your collection. I've currently got a table in my basement filled with Marvel Legends Build-A-Figures, and those are all going up for sale to fund more Hot Toys. Redirection.
Smart move, my friend. Any pre-orders that you've been thinking about lately?
Well, I've been so I also have the Iron Patriot. That was again one of my first figures that I picked up. Great figure. I'm going to hold on to it for now, but I decided that War Machine needs a better representation, so I pre-ordered the Mark IV War
Ooh.
Machine. Yeah, and that's a big ticket item right there. And I did a payment plan. I did 3 payments. I think it comes out, it's next December or something like that, or next or 2020 in January, somewhere around there. But love that figure. We talked about it a little bit, I think last episode. It's a pretty beefy looking design, mulling it over, and I wanted to jump on it right now, so I can kind of plan on it for next year.
Yeah, it's a good plan there. And for myself, when I'm looking at and I think I have talked about it before, but I kind of have like a rolling 12-month budget with money that I set aside for collecting only, and looking at what figures are going to be released. And I think one of the things that you and I both enjoy about this line and collecting it is it's very slow, it's very deliberate. You can plan things out in advance, and it's not like you're going to get surprised like you would be. Our friends at Hasbro, I mean, times, they have their conventions in San Diego Comic Con. All of a sudden, oh, there's all these new things happening, and they're going to drop, but you don't know if you're going to be able to get them or not. And things like Funko and exclusives. And this is very much, it's very clear how you obtain them, and you can plan it out. So for me, there's been a couple Star Wars ones that I've just been talking about being very deliberate and thinking it through. I've been thinking a lot about the Obi-Wan Kenobi figure from Revenge of the Sith. I finally said, yep, that's going to be one that I want to add, especially after getting the Anakin figure coming soon. Han Solo from the new Solo movie. I just enjoyed that movie so much. I wanted to have at least one representation of that movie in my collection. And we talked about it last time. That Darth Maul figure from Phantom Menace. Can't wait to add that to my collection on the 20th anniversary of the Phantom Menace next year. And it looks amazing. I did go for the standard version of all of those figures again. I'm just, not that I don't like the accessories, it's just with the way that I display my collection, it's just, I was able to save some money by doing it that way.
All great choices. Love all of them. I definitely, that Darth Maul is just amazing. It looks like straight off the movie set, right into your collection. But that's good stuff. I also it doesn't really, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily fits into this line, but I did pre-order that the Ant-Man and Wasp diorama. It's the miniature Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Ant-Man's flying on a flying ant, and I just thought it was really cool. Comes out in the next month or two, and I'm just curious to see how it compares to the figures, and I just like the idea of adding an extra little piece like that. See, I'm more of a sucker for some of the accessories and deluxe figures, but we'll see. We'll see when that shows up. We can talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely am very interested in that. I don't, scale wise, I don't know if it'll necessarily fit in,
Right.
with the 1/6, but I'm looking 1/6 scale, excuse me. But I'm over looking at my collection, and the Civil War version of Black Widow came with a little miniature Scott Lang, which I don't think is obviously in scale, but who cares? I think to display
Right.
both of those things with, I know those are two figures that you've also got on pre-order down the line, to have that as the miniature versions of that. I mean, it's your collection. Who cares? I mean, nobody's going to be there judging you to say, well, that doesn't fit or that's not
Right.
canon, or that's
Yeah,
one
it's
thing that Star Wars fans are probably rolling their
oh
eyes
boy,
about.
I
That's
know,
not
right?
canon. That's not how it goes. So that's
Yeah.
one cool thing
Yeah.
about being, collectors. You can display, things however you choose, and I think that's you can either set it and leave it, you can change it up. I know there's a lot of collectors that like to daily, weekly change up how the collection looks, and to each their own. There's no wrong way to collect.
Cool. Well, that's a nice little
I honestly, to be honest
chat
with you,
there.
Chris, I don't think we're gonna have a collection update like that for a long
Yeah,
time.
I don't think so either, but
So
it's
I don't. So, but in the spirit of being transparent, we'll see how it goes. If people don't like that kind of talk at all, we can axe it in future episodes. But I don't know.
it's all
I
good.
thought it was worth talking about. So what I do want to think is worth talking about, Chris, is we're talking about our feature figure of episode 2, and it is Rey from The Last Jedi in her Jedi training outfit. I don't know officially when that went up for pre-order. I know I pre-ordered it last October. I did get it. It was one, actually, I think it was the figure we talked about last week was Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. Those were my first two pre-orders on Sideshow. So conveniently, episode 2, we'll talk about the second figure I ever pre-ordered with Rey. It was shipped to me on July 19th, right before I went on vacation. It is Movie Masterpiece Series 446. Retailed originally for $228. It is still available for purchase. Buy it now on Sideshow. So if it is a figure that you're interested in, and maybe based on hearing some of my firsthand takes on that figure, maybe you decide that you want to go and add that to your collection. So overall, Chris, and I think I've mentioned it before, I really enjoy the character of Rey. This is the third Rey figure that they have released. Well, technically four in the Hot Toys line. There was the original version from her Jakku outfit. It came the same. It was the same figure. It came separately, but then it also came in a set with BB-8, which is the one that I have. The only difference between the two figures is one has BB-8, one doesn't. So it's not a separate figure release, but it is a separate Hot Toys release. There's the Resistance Rey from the end of The Force Awakens, which that figure is just amazing. That I love having in my collection, and this would be the third from The Last Jedi. So definitely, I was looking forward to getting this one. I will say, Chris, and I'll try to be We'll try to be politically correct as we say that because I
Yeah.
think you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of negative Nancy's about this figure on a lot of the collecting community groups out there, mostly centered around the face sculpt of Daisy Ridley with this figure. I can't get to the bottom of what the criticism of it is. I'm looking at it on my shelf right now, Chris. It looks just like Daisy Ridley. I don't know if it's the way that her hair is down differently than it was in the original movie, and that's the what people get used to. I haven't lined them all up next to each other yet. I probably will at some point. The only thing I can notice is the skin tone of her face is a little bit lighter than it is for the other two figures. I don't know. It's not exactly the same. It is lighter. So I don't know if that's what people are concerned about, but structurally, face wise, it looks just like her. I think a lot of the promo images of what they showed, and even some of the when they were going to officially release it in Hong Kong, a lot of the photos were like head on, not at an angle, and maybe that's why it looked a little differently. I don't really personally have any concerns about the face whatsoever. It looks like Ray slash Daisy Ridley to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures right now online, and I sometimes I think people have an issue with it's kind of like a blank look, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe if it was a little bit more dynamic or something like that, it might be perceived a little bit better. But I don't know.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
looks like Days of Ridley to me, man.
she is a little stoic, and I'm looking at Resistance Ray, and you definitely can see she's kind of got that that look in her face. I mean, I have her posed handing the lightsaber to Luke Skywalker on my shelf. One of the best scenes that they've ever done in Star Wars, and the epitome of the cliffhanger. And she's got a little bit more of a determined look on her Jakku one, so maybe that's what it is. I don't know. To me, I'm certainly glad overall that I added this to my collection. Am I disappointed with it in any way? No. I have a couple little nitpicky things about it, but overall, I definitely think if you're a Ray fan, like I am, a Ray completist. I don't know if I'll ever be a completist because I'm sure they'll make a boatload of her figures that I might not ever be able to fit in my display cases. But overall, I think it's definitely a worthwhile addition for the character of Ray in that film. Accessory wise, she came pretty loaded, I think, for kind of a standard release. She did come with a Skywalker lightsaber, one version, again, as we've mentioned with a lot of the Jedi figures. The right arm, there's an extra right arm that's attachable right below the elbow, which you can add to have the lightsaber light up. I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. I'm kind of adverse to adding batteries to any of my figures. And to me, the light up feature of the lightsaber does look cool in some photos. It's just not something that I'm going to do. Actually, I don't even have her displayed with a lightsaber in hand right now. She does come with two porgs, and on the Brick City Blockade, we're very porg friendly. So I actually have them kind of recreating the scene of one of the porgs actually almost igniting the lightsaber and stabbing the other one.
That's awesome.
So there's that. So it does come with the lightsaber that can light up. It does come with the lightsaber that you can detach the standard blue blade that's ignited. There also, as there was with the Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, there's a in motion kind of triangle blade for it as well. I have seen some Instagrammers out there that have displayed the figure with that lit up, and it does look pretty cool. Again, it's just personal preference for myself where I probably won't use that. And it does come also with her blaster pistol that Han Solo gave her. And to me, one of the best things about Rey, and I actually have her displayed with her quarterstaff, even though the outfit she has here, she didn't actually have it with her. Canon be damned. I have her displayed with that kind of slung over her shoulder. And again, it's the same exact staff that they've released with the two prior versions. And it's just so well made. It's so detailed, and it actually has the working shoulder strap that makes it really, I think it makes it a highlight of the figure.
I'm looking at pictures here. How's the construction of the actual material?
The outfit is
clothing?
amazing. Like the outfit is amazing. It looks exactly like it did in the film. It has kind of her kind of made Jedi sash that's kind of a take on what she originally had with her Jakku look. But the underneath, the kind of her little tunic underneath, the detail is just amazing. The arm wraps, everything about the outfit is just great. The pants, the boots. I will say I have one, and it might be just it might be just an issue with the figure that I got. I think with the articulation at the ankle, there might not be a whole lot of plastic right there where the ankle is, and the the right boot on my figure is kind of a little indented in right where the ankle pivot would be, and I don't have any way of kind of puffing that out at all. It's not super noticeable, and it's not something that is really kind of an eyesore, but it is something that I kind of wish that was a little bit better constructed. That's like the nittiest of nitpicks that I can have about this figure, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like every once in a while, some of these figures have some issues with joints. Some of those areas where two pieces are coming together. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't affect posability and displayability going forward. But
One thing I was glad about was, speaking of the face sculpt, is that it has sculpted hair and not rooted hair. Now, I mentioned it before too, her hairstyle towards the end of the film in Return of the Jedi, where she kind of she takes her hair down.
you mean the
And
Last Jedi?
Last Jedi. What did I say?
Return of the Jedi.
Oh, so I got Return of the Jedi in the brain.
That's
Yeah,
right.
the look that she had in the Last Jedi was she has her hair down, kind of shoulder length, and I was actually glad that they went with the sculpted hair.
As we get into these figures and really check them out, the sculpted hair, I kind of wish they used a little bit more on some of the female characters. To me, they really nail it out of the park with the sculpted hair. Some of the rooted hair, it's tough to get that look. We'll probably talk about it in future episodes, but some of custom the customizers out there have come up with some insane rooted hair looks. And
Yeah, you just showed
you know
me somebody on Instagram the other day that had taken the Gladiator Thor and made that all rooted hair with his short haircut and his beard and stuff, and it looks just like Chris Helmsworth does in real life. It's amazing.
I know it's insane. I'd like to get into that stuff someday, but right now, I'm just kind of focused on getting the figures and I'll play around with them later. But
I'd be
yeah,
too scared to customize any of mine.
I know,
I'm
right?
kind of risk adverse, if anybody can't tell that at well with my collection. But yeah,
Yeah.
overall, we'll be a little brief with just the audio review of the figure. We again don't have any kind of rating system. We haven't quite figured that out yet on this podcast. I don't know, we'll go with 2 thumbs up, or 4 stars seems to be a pretty common one. I don't know, if I was to go 4 stars, I might go like 3 and 3/4 or something like that. It's not quite a 4-star figure for
Hmm.
me, but I am not displeased with it whatsoever.
Yeah, man. Glad you like it and glad it's in a nice collection there with all your other Ray figures. So, how does it, height wise and stuff, does it, is it pretty uniform across all your Ray figures, or do any
I'm
of
gonna
them
have to
look
line
out of
them up,
place?
but of course a couple of they're not all in kind of the same pose. It does just they're all on different shelves in my collection here, but they all do look pretty much the same.
Hmm.
I've got her displayed next to Luke Skywalker, and Daisy Ridley's about the same height as Mark Hamill. So we'll see.
Cool, cool.
Definitely something maybe we can talk about in a future episode. But yeah, something that's still in stock now. It comes with enough accessories. I feel like it's not overpriced, and I feel like you get good value for what you're paying for.
Awesome.
So, Chris, I thought this was going to be an episode we might be a little shorter, but I think we maybe even have exceeded the time frame of our first
Oops.
episode. But oops, sorry, we like
Uh,
talking about hot toys, so hopefully you
yeah,
as a listener do as well. And
good
give
chat.
us feedback and let us know is it good length? Are we rambling too much? And we'll go from there. We definitely want this to be something that not only we enjoy doing, but you as the audience and the listener enjoy, find entertaining, and hopefully can learn some things as well.
Cool, man. I think
I think it's
we'll end
time
it there.
for
Yeah.
let's do the outro here,
Mm,
and as we say on the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network, plug time. So,
it's plug
Chris,
time.
Where can our listeners find you on social media?
You can find me at Vintage Viewport on Twitter and Instagram. How about you?
Jedi Scavenger SW on Twitter and Instagram. We'll give another plug for our private group on Facebook. You can just search for Six Scale Scavengers, and Chris or I will get a notification to add you. Look forward to having a very fun and engaging discussion there, and sharing in between episodes about our collecting. And if you've got questions out there, I know some of our listeners are new to collecting the line. If there's anything we can do to help or point you in the right direction, we'd be more than happy to kind of pay it forward. As I mentioned, we're part of the Brick City Blockade podcast network. Head over to brickcityblockade.com. You can find all of the awesome podcasts that are part of the network on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. If it's out there, you can probably find it. So, Chris, I think that'll do it for episode 2. And as we always say, may the force be with you.
Always.